I'd like to call this meeting to order. Are there any members of the public who would like to have a public comment? If not, we'll move on. I need approval of the minute of November the 21st.
So moved.
Have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Very good. We'll go into an executive session in just a minute, but I would like to talk. Dina brought up the fact that we may want to change the timing of some of these meetings, and I thought we'd get a consensus of what we would like to get before we bring it before the full committee. So, Dina, what would you like to do? Begin at 5:30 as opposed to 4:30?
Well, this, for this one, if we do what we were thinking of doing for the support staff was 3 to 5, is that correct? 3:30 to 5:30?
I don't think we'd settled on an end time.
Do you need that much time?
Yeah, they're gonna.
I mean, the next meeting, what they want to do
Well,
is to rotate.
well, no, I just spoke to them about the rotation, and we think we have come back to us about, we think we have a solution that we won't need to request rotating this to the earlier time frame.
3:30.
So the support staff would be 3:30 to 5 or 3:30 to 5:30. We don't definitively, I think the rules call for 2 hours. The ground rules call for 2 hours.
5:30. So we would.
So we would be 5:30 to 6.
Just have
But if we needed a meeting beforehand. So
Yeah.
that's the issue that I think we need to discuss, of whether or not you all believe it's beneficial to have that half hour beforehand to settle in and meet. And if that's the case, then to do that at 5:30. And then the meeting would be from 6 to 8 with
Okay.
the negotiation session.
I think that makes sense, because a few people will send you back to the office to crank some figures or something like that, and you can go over them with us then. And we'll have to propose this to the association. What about the dates? So anyway, just to get those dates.
Right, so there's that. We did.
Let me just be sure that I get this right. What we would do, we would call the meeting officially for 5:30. 5:30 to 6 would be the time that we would meet in executive session. 6 to 8 would be the negotiating time. Is that
Yes.
general consensus?
Yes.
Okay.
The meeting date that we currently right now have January 16th, January 23rd, and January 30th that we have indicated that we can do. I have sent both Katie and Megan, the two lead negotiators, an email, and I've also spoken to Norm. I have a conflict on the 23rd, so we will be looking to remove the 23rd of January from the schedule, and requesting if we can do February 13th instead, which, on a lighter note, is Leon's birthday, and so if he's here, we have to acknowledge that.
So I had down the 6th. Did we plus down anything the 6th?
The 6th, we did not, I had a hold on the 6th too, but I don't believe that that's a date that we agreed to.
Monday the 6th.
Monday the 6th.
Okay, so let me just be sure. We've got the 19th, which is today, obviously, and then what are we going to change the 23rd to?
The January 23rd, move it to February 13th, basically,
Okay.
adding that date in.
2/13. Do we have any other dates the next date that we'd like to propose? That's
And
just-
then we also we'd like to propose February 27th, which we checked with those who are on the ESP board team. We have not checked with you gentlemen who are on the teachers team solely. So whether or not the 27th of February works for you all.
Sure. Well, let's propose those to this. So we'll do the time changes, and we'll also propose the two meeting dates. One would be for February 13th, and the other would be for February 27th. Nick, is that all right with you? Jeff?
Sorry, February 13th
Yes, February.
and February 27th.
Right.
And February 27th.
January
We're still
16th.
keeping January 16th
And January 30th.
and January 30th.
Yes. And we're asking to do the start time from 6 with them.
Right. But so let me just go over that. Everybody agreed that our next meeting would be the 16th of January. The next meeting would be the 30th of January. The next meeting would be the 13th of February, and the next meeting would be the 27th of February. So that gives us 4 meetings. And we are canceling the proposed meeting that, on the 23rd. Okay?
Sounds like a plan.
All right, very good. We can go, do you want to, Dan, do you want to go into in the back room to talk about any of this, or do you want to go to here?
We can go into the back room.
I think it's good if you would just go over basically the biggest issue that's taken place in the last few days, and that's the health insurance. So everybody's on the same page, know where our costs are certainly going to increase. We're talking about the paraprofessionals and stuff.
Yep,
Okay.
we can go, if you want to go into an executive session.
Okay, so I'll need a motion to go.
So moved.
Second? Second, all those in favor? Okay, we'll go back.
Thank you.
Areas that I would like to clear up. One is the timing of these meetings. Because of the ESP contracts being negotiated in this, we'd like to make this meeting take place a little bit later than it is now. We'd like to run it between 6 and 8. Just throw that out, you could discuss it at will and come back to us. Also, I'd like to make a slight change in the next scheduled meetings. We have down here the 16th of January, the 30th of January. We will eliminate the 23rd because there's a conflict with some of the people here, and maybe on your side also. In February, we meet the 13th and the 27th.
We had originally, the February 13th was our deadline for arbitration, so we would prefer to not meet past the 13th.
Okay, we'll just cross off, I don't have a problem with that. We'll cross off the 27th. We can always reinstate it again if whoever we have, I don't know, whoever is.
Right.
Okay, any questions on that? All right, we can move on then.
Yeah, we can do that. Do you all have copies? I know I sent it to you, but do you have copies of, okay, because Nick graciously made some copies, so I just wanted to make sure that we all did. So at this point, I believe we've given you our full proposal. I don't know where you all are at. I know that you had wanted to wait until after clearly arbitrator's decision on health insurance regarding how to handle that. So I would open it, I guess, to you all if you want to proceed.
We figured you would start with the official proposal of the other language, because I think you guys have to actually, the CDC language.
Oh, okay. So
I think
you want me
you have
to- would you like me to go through?
Yes,
through that?
because
Even though
there are some amendments that were made since last time.
Yes, there is. There's one specific one.
Do you all have a copy of that?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so that's fine, I can do that. So the supplemental board proposals, one of the major things, and it's sort of like cleaning up the language that we had talked about, is throughout the document where the provisions apply to, their general provisions that apply both to SU employees and the regional tech school district employees, is to use superintendent/director. Do want to point out, and you'll see where I made some changes in the specific proposals that we have. If it is an issue, and I'm asking you, language-wise, if it is an issue of where you see /director, that members of your bargaining unit are going to contemplate that means a director out of central office can do this, then what we just had a discussion of whether or not that was actually going to be confusing. Then we would be identifying it as a CDC director, if that's, so we would ask you if that is confusing, because we understood what we meant.
It is a little confusing. We could either do it CDC director, or we could add it to the definitions, to definitions.
Okay, so we'll manage one of the ways of doing that. Because Jim took a look and said, so they may think like the director's in central office.
Yeah.
And that is not who we are talking about. So as I go through this, we are talking about the gentleman, and it's Mike, his title is superintendent/director, which is why we had done it that way. We would like to make the changes to just the initials that are used for the technical school district. Get rid of the W in there, so that's number 2. To the substantive changes regarding provisions, Article 11, you'll see in 11.6 in the main body of it that you will see that director, and it is meaning CDC, obviously. They just said we're proposing to make that change. In subpart A, the proposal is that getting rid of the language where there is no reason or approval needed be given by the teacher at the time the leave is requested, except for leave requested at this time specified in section B below regarding usage of personal leave. The board read through Article 11 again, and when you read the body of 11.6, it actually lays out potential uses for personal time. And the issue became, and for clarity, that since personal time has a specific intended use, which is that it's not to be intended to be used for social affairs, pleasure trips, or part-time employment, but it's for conduct, for important affairs which can only be conducted during the regular school day, such as weddings, funerals, for whom no bereavement leave is available, if you have traveling condition issues, religious holidays, things of that nature. The board is therefore proposing in A that the language be changed, that the teacher shall provide a basis for use of the leave such that the superintendent/CDC director, and it should say or designee because it became clear that the majority of those leaves are being done and approved at the building level, but that so that the approval, that the basis would be provided so that those individuals shall be able to ascertain that usage of leave is consistent with 11.6 above. In B, the personal leave usage, currently your contract says that people cannot use personal leave on the workday immediately preceding or immediately following a school holiday or vacation, or during the last 2 work weeks of the school year, except when it is actually in fact granted by the superintendent or the director. The board is proposing that that also be that it be expanded to the first 2 work weeks of the year. We are not requesting that or designee be added to that specifically. Those do go right now to the director of the CDC, and they do go to Superintendent Culkeen under those, but the other ones above would. Article 25, evaluation, the 25.1, the change of designees must be a licensed administrator or supervisor employed by the board or the Southwest Vermont Southwest Vermont Supervisory Union or Southwest Vermont Regional Technical School District. That's to clarify issues predominantly at the CDC. The individuals who are doing evaluations in the SU are in fact licensed educators, but it's to ensure that, get clarity that it's not going to be the business manager at the CDC who would be doing evaluations of people. That has been a question that has come up. The remainder of the changes in that provision are just to do for the initial designation of the technical center. Article 27, rights and responsibilities, 27.7, we've bifurcated that out to make sure that there's clarity. The only change that we are making in the new A is to identify that what is in your contract currently is what applies to the employees of Southwest Vermont Supervisory Union or its member districts, but there is no change to the internal composition of that paragraph. We are proposing a new B, which is that for the CDC, a teacher hired for a position covered by that agreement shall be employed as a probationary teacher until the teacher completes 3 school years. After 3 school years, teachers that have not obtained a level 1 Vermont professional educator license with the appropriate CTE endorsement, will remain as a probationary teacher until such license is obtained. And then it does take the language from the existing 27.7 regarding how we define what a completion of a school year, meaning that it shall require actually working no less than 160 student days during the single fiscal year. During any year of probation in which a teacher can be expected to work no less than 160 student days, the administration will perform a minimum of 2 formal observations, the first of which will occur prior to November 15th. The non-renewal, this is a change, no, I'm sorry, this is not a change. The non-renewal of a probationary teacher by the board shall not be subject to the good and sufficient cause standard set forth in section 27.1 or the grievance and arbitration procedures of this agreement. The reason for the 3 years is that you do have people who are, for, I guess the best way to describe it, tradespeople coming in. There is sometimes a curve for them to be able to get their educator's license, and so the CDC believes that having that additional probationary year to permit the individual to get their level 1 Vermont professional educator license, appropriate endorsement, would be beneficial for them to be able to maintain their staffing levels. Article 29 is about the change in 29.20. Is currently all teachers may be required to attend 1 open house during the work year if a teacher teaches in more than 1 building. Such teacher may be required to attend an open house at each building, provided the dates of the open houses do not conflict. We're asking for clarity and adding in from under the high school part of that not only are the Mount Anthony Union High School teachers, but also the technical school district teachers will be required to attend 2 open houses during the school year, 1 in the fall and 1 in the spring. 29.32, the first change is just on the identification of the Southwest Vermont Regional Technical School District. In paragraph A, there are no proposed changes. There is a proposed change in provision B, subprovision B, which currently it says, currently the provision reads, in order to create and maintain a learning environment that is supportive of students' learning and teachers productively teaching, teachers will participate in promoting and improving school climate. For this purpose, teachers currently are assigned, the language says may be assigned administrative duties. Up to an annual average of 20 minutes per day is what we are proposing for the technical center teachers. Teachers will also contribute to the continual improvement, program maintenance, public relations, recruiting, and marketing. For the CDC, teachers are expected to fulfill their professional obligations such as state cluster meetings, professional networking activities, and school or program improvement activities. The superintendent director will assure teachers stay in compliance with the State Board Rule Series 2370, which is about career technical education. We are proposing that if 29.32B, as written above, as I just read to you, is accepted, that we can in fact remove all of 29.33 out of the contract. Article 29.32D, we are seeking to remove the language where teachers assigned or agreeing to teach additional classes under this section shall not be assigned administrative non-teaching duties during the semesters when so engaged. That's teachers who agree to teach additional courses, but such additional, and are being paid the flat rate which is laid out in the provision for the additional courses. We're asking that those teachers, if need be, that we can in fact, we're removing the prohibition against them being assigned administrative non-teaching duties. 29.34, the change we're making is the identification of the SVRTSD faculty and removing Senate. I believe it's because there really isn't a Senate anymore. And so that's old language that does not need to in fact be there. And those are the supplemental provisions that we are proposing, which predominantly, other than I believe the Article 11 specifically address the Southwest Vermont Regional Technical School District issues. I don't know if there are any questions about that. Well, I think we can talk about the elementary school, I think is what we brought up
Yeah.
as well. Okay. We received your email, thank you, about the elementary school. I didn't know if you wanted to talk about that. From the board's perspective, it looks to us that there are schools that are actually, in fact, getting daily prep, if I'm understanding how some of this is. And there are schools which may not be getting it at daily prep, just recognizing that the contract itself says that it's not the daily breakdown. It doesn't, your proposal is for the daily breakdown. I don't know if you wanted to talk more about this, or?
Were there any specific questions?
I had to have Pownell explain to me, but they're on a 6 day.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so it's on one day they don't get it, but then they get it
But they
They
get
get it
sort of,
double.
yeah.
They get it made up. So there isn't it isn't a lack of getting the prep, is how it's scheduled out still, if I'm understanding this correctly.
In that school, it's not a problem, but in some other schools, teachers are either not getting prep that's preserved prep for that teacher, or they are getting collaboration time dictated to them. So there is a bit of language in the contract right now, like collaboration time is mentioned, but some schools, the collaboration time is left up to the teachers and the people they're collaborating with. Other schools, it is dictated by the administrator what that collaboration time looks like. So that collaboration time could just be with a designated coach, as opposed to necessarily what the teacher or the staff designates as needed collaboration time, if that makes sense.
And the reason why we proposed the elementary language is currently in the contract, it said it was going to be rectified by 2012. Language was going to be rectified by 2012.
And it never was.
And we are beyond that, so we wanted to clean up that language and remove the 2012 language.
We did in our proposal, we had two just sort of corrections in our proposal. One of them is under definitions, Article 31 definitions. Based on the arbitration, correct? Based on the arbitration, we're changing part-time teacher to be a teacher who works at least an average of 17.5 hours per week, so that the language matches what the state arbitration, originally it said 20 hours, so we're changing that to 17.5. The other piece we wanted to edit was that in Appendix C, we had some CDC CTSO advisors all adjusted to a Category 8. We also want to include the CDC ProStart advisor, which is the group associated with culinary. So it's, even though it is not a CTSO advisor, it has the same, it has comparable duties, thank you. It has comparable duties to the CTSO advisors. So we would just be adding the CDC ProStart advisor to that list.
I'm sorry.
To the category, so the Appendix C, yeah,
It's
so
the CDC.
it's the CDC ProStart advisor. So currently we have the CTSO advisor, so FBLA, DECA, Skills USA, POSA, and FFA. We would be adding the CDC ProStart advisor as well to that list.
Are you familiar with the criterion that's used to determine where people are placed on Appendix C?
Not really.
Okay.
Yes, I mean, we are, but there are, one of the things that was talked about with where these particular advisors are is, that these particular advisors have the same, basically require the same qualifications and require the same time commitment, and they're all at different levels on the appendix. That's why the proposed changes.
Did you take a look at the number of people that are involved in each of those as when compared with the other areas within Appendix C? So that somebody with those would have the same number of students that he or she was dealing with?
Yep, so we didn't compare them to the other places in Appendix C. What we compared them to was each other. And I don't remember which ones they are, but there are one or two of the CTSO advisors that are at a Category 8, but the others are not. So this would just be leveling the playing field for the CDC advisors. Because the number of students in the clubs are comparable, the duties are comparable, the requirements are comparable. So just putting them all on the same playing field.
Okay.
And then we also have, and this is if you're ready to hear this, we have a couple of things in your initial proposal, not the cleaned up CDC language, but in the initial proposal that we are willing to accept or we're ready to accept for a potential agreement, and we have a salary grid proposal as well.
I don't know, are we willing to listen to them and accept some of their proposals? I believe we would.
Cool, awesome. I don't know, I wasn't sure if you were ready.
I mean, I think I'm gonna unilaterally speak on behalf of the board for that.
Well, I wasn't sure if you wanted to comment first.
I think that's great. I mean, we had, I just wanted, and I'm sorry to.
You're fine.
We had agreed to the language change,
Yeah.
the gender neutral language change. I have not gone through the whole contract to make those changes.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that we understand that. And we had agreed to the language that says the block.
In the middle school language.
The middle school language
Yes.
for the block.
Yes.
That change we'll do, and we can get it to you guys to sign off on that as well, to do
Perfect.
that. But I apologize, I did not have to give it to the whole contract to
I think we can accept that one for now, and then when we go through the final document,
Okay.
we can change there.
That's
Yes.
great.
The first one is in Article 11. It's 11.5A4, I believe. It's the portion that says a teacher may, during the unpaid leave of absence, continue group insurance upon payment of the full monthly premium. Payment of the premium shall be made on or before the 15th day of each month. We would accept that. The other one was in Article 30.2, unless you changed that one. I don't think so, yeah. So in 30.2, 30.2B, there were the two pieces. So a board shall base the teacher's placement at an experience step upon the years of licensed teaching and work experience. We accept that. And the other piece that says the superintendent may exercise his or her discretion regarding the additional consideration of prior work experience for proper step placement. Such discretion shall not be arbitrary or capricious.
And that is fine as well.
That's fine as well. Yeah.
That's
Article 30, 30.2B.
Okay. Okay, yeah.
So those are things that we are accepting outright. So we just wanted to start there.
Okay, that's it. So-
No, speak to the other piece.
Oh,
His,
yes, we can
he
do
said he
that.
would do that.
Yes.
And then the next piece, so what's coming to you right now, is our proposed salary grid, and I can give you some justifications for this. Do you have enough?
Yeah.
Okay. So there are a couple of justifications of this. There's also, I have to tell you that it printed weirdly. So the first page, so what we put together was a 3-year salary grid proposal. The first page printed just as the printing notes. The first page printed correctly. The second page did not print correctly and only goes up to bachelor plus 30. That is an error. I will make sure to give Nick a copy of the full thing so he can get it out to all of you. But it should show you enough of an idea of what that looks like. And then the third page printed the teacher distribution on salary schedule for 2019 to 2020, which doesn't need to be there, but if it's not there, some of the algorithms don't work. So you can, I think, disregard that bottom piece.
I'm sorry, which bottom piece?
On the third page, there's a bottom piece that says teacher distribution on salary
Yeah.
schedule 2019 to 2020. I'm not sure that that's up to date. That's from the last negotiations piece. So just
Okay.
for right now, you can disregard that piece. It's there because some of the algorithms are based on it. Just so that you know. Okay, so we have looked at a couple of different things, most notably the increases in VHI, both from this year. This year, VHI went up 12.9%. As we know, it was 12 point something percent, sorry. Yes, 12.9%. The gold CDHP went up 12.9%. I'm sorry, it will go up 12.9%. It went up 11.8%. I apologize. So taking into account the fact that it went up 11.8%, it's going up an additional 12.9%, which is a 24.7% increase over 2 years. So we took into account that. We took into account the fact that we are anticipating that health insurance premium costs are going to continue to go up over the next few years because that has been the trend. And we are also taking into account the fact that the board is paying currently somewhere around 60% of the deductible portion that it has, for lack of a better word, that it has agreed to pay. So with the deductible, because it's 80-20, an 80, right, 80-20? 80-20 deductible. In terms of people who are using the full deductible or the portion of the deductible, according to the numbers that you provided us, the board is paying around 60% of that. So that has been a significant savings on that end as well. So what we're saying is that, yes, premiums are also going up for the board, but the board is still able to save some of that money with the premiums, or with the deductibles that are not being paid. So what we're proposing is a 7% increase on the base plus step for the first year. And then the following 2 years, it's a 5% increase on the base plus step, which will bring us, at the end of that time, to a base salary of $47,629. The other thing we are taking into account is the fact that Arlington is going to be joining our district, and Arlington already has a higher base salary than us, and they're also working on trying to get that base salary higher because currently their split is not 80-20. So members are, I think they're only paying 13%. So members are going to be hit with more with the 80-20 split. So they will be trying to increase their base as well. So their base is already higher than ours. And since they're joining our district, we want to make our base closer to theirs so that they're more comfortable. That was the justification behind this proposal.
Yep, I can, yeah, that's fine.
Just a couple of things we'd like to bring to your attention to see if they're incorporated into your calculations.
So I do have a question here, because while you currently right now are at an 80-20%, you're paying 10% first dollar of the
Yep.
HRA, which the board under the new decision will be covering all of that. You're remaining at an 80-20. So I will say this, we don't have a hard and fast number regarding the health insurance right now. I can tell you it is, however, an anticipated substantial increase. It is an increase that is potentially in the, let me make sure I do this right, 6 figures, no, 6 figures, it's over 6 figures.
It's $1 million.
Hmm?
Yeah, $1 million.
Yeah, it's potentially, so that is, just to make sure that you understand, we are gonna be picking up more of the HRA costs on that. The other issue that we are dealing with, as you know, is we have to negotiate both contracts, including, we do have, and while they are separate bargaining units, we do have support staff, which currently, right now, we do not offer the family plan for. We will, of course, under the arbitrator's decision, have to offer the family plan, as well as for 17.5 hours for paraeducators, offering not only the single plan, the teachers, but offering all of the health insurance at a prorated breakdown of that. So from the board's perspective, as I said, and I don't want to put out a hard and fast number because we don't have a hard and fast number right now, we in fact anticipate that our costs will be in fact going up, while not even factoring in the 80-20 premium share, overall monthly annual premium share cost going up, the 12.9% for the gold CDHP. So that's one thing that just as an initial response. I think the other initial response that I would be remiss to not make is that while the utilization rate currently for up to this year looks like at 5.9, almost 60%, there is nothing that's guaranteeing that that utilization rate will remain steady at 60%. I believe the 2018 data we gave also demonstrated about a 60%. The utilization rate, especially with the switch of us doing first dollars, is going to go up as well. So clearly we will be spending for you all, I believe it's a 10% that you do, is that correct? The 10% of the HRA first dollars right now. We will be spending that money, which we had not been spending before, as well as also having an increase into the HRA contribution. That is, of course, unless all of you pick the silver CDHP and get the HSA group. So we think that cost will be substantial. So those are the initial points. One of the things we are looking at is obviously getting as best as we can, a hard and fast number about that. But you know, when you did request the utilization rate, that was clearly something which, you know, I recognize the fact that there's, it can be looked at as that there may potentially be funds that are there that can be utilized for something else. That's not a guarantee. And we would be remiss if we didn't appropriately fund the HRA. So I'm sure that what I'm saying is not a surprise to you at all. But we would ask, or just point out that is part of the calculation that we'll be doing as well.
And a big portion of our calculation is based on, with that increase, making sure that people are not losing money next year. So like including the step and the amount that people are paying each month, just making sure that people are still able to pay that. That was the major consideration for that.
What I would say, and I am respectfully saying this, and I truly am, is that there needs to be, I think, sort of from the board's perspective, a balancing of where do the dollars get deployed, right? We were told that dollars have to be deployed into health insurance where they're at. That obviously impacts for us where dollars can be deployed for salary. And, as part of an overall compensation package, benefits are part of an overall compensation package. And that, I would be remiss if I didn't point that out to you all. And I respectfully say that to you all, yes.
I just would like to emphasize that again, that it's our responsibility to use the funds available to us in the most productive way. And I don't think any of us really are anything but supportive of the idea of making sure that those people, whether they be paras or whether they be support personnel or whatever else, have the same benefits and health insurance that the teachers and the administrators have. It's the right thing to do. The problem is the money. And if I have the figures right, Nick, correct me, but I think it's somewhere around over 160 people will now be eligible for more health insurance and a family plan. And you know that a family plan runs at $25,000 a crack. And even if you're paying 20 or 80% of it, it's still a lot of money. And we only have so much money. So I just want to be very sure that you realize that this, the community, the whole SVSU, is facing a real challenge in how best to use the funds that we have to be able to support everybody.
It gives us a talking point. What? I'm sorry.
Point about as we have in the past.
Yeah, I think we can talk about that later. We appreciate what the pressures are that you feel are coming down the pike. The pressure there, of course, is also for the board of the 12.9%, 80% of that we're taking, and of the 24.7% increase over 2 years, we took 80% as well. So, I mean, obviously, it's a point to talk about, and it gives food for thought about whether or not health insurance really maybe should have been moved off, but of what our table is. And so we appreciate that you guys have put have put a lot of thought into this. And as Tim said, I think what the board is doing is, in its own mind, is doing the balancing with what is respectful, appropriate, and also fiscally prudent.
And we appreciate that.
Would you like to caucus to be able to talk about this?
Yeah, we will. I just want to check with one minute.
Before we do that, I did want to, for the elementary school, I did want to go back if it's okay.
Oh, yes,
I'm sorry
absolutely.
if I'm not sure if you're done with.
I'm done.
Okay. We had indicated that Superintendent Colquhoun was going to go back, talk to regarding the prep time issues that were brought up to the principals. He in fact did what it may not be surprising to you, which is that schedule-wise, it is incredibly almost impossible. I think, Jim, is it an almost impossible or just an impossible? I'm not sure which one we're at. To not have the flexibility which exists right now in the contract, which is not having it specified, per day for elementary teachers, where it's specified what the overall time frame is for prep time. We are concerned about making sure that there is parity in terms of that people are getting what their prep is. There are a lot of factors which push into that issue. It's something that clearly it needs to be focused on. One of the things I can tell you, we gave you guys about what the absences are. Besides me feeling somewhat smug and validated that Friday is the most popular day for absences. One of the things that we have is, I'm sure you all have bumped into this, is a limited subpool. And when I say limited, I mean by numbers. And we have about right now, not every position gets a sub. It was explained to me, but those that are get a sub, we have about a 50% ability to fill. So a fill rate of about 50%. And things of that nature impact on it. In terms of what the elementary school schedule is, also impacts on the prep time. You know, the discussion I think that Superintendent Colquhoun has had with his administrators is finding ways of that, ensuring that, and looking at to make sure that there is in fact that parity. Some schools, it was very clear from what you said, some schools not having a hard time, or maybe have invested the time, and some schools need to invest more time looking at how they're utilizing it. So we are very sensitive to that issue. It is, however, something at this point we think schedule-wise that, and what the hurdles are, that the language that's existing right now in the contract, from our position, it is the way, is how it has to be structured. And is that a fair representation, Jim, of your conversations with the principals?
I believe so.
Thank you. Other than that, I do think that we probably do want to go process and have a conversation about this. Does that sound right to you all?
Yes.
Okay.
What time would you like to meet back here?
What time is it now? I can't
It's
see it.
it's 10 of 6 right now.
And then 6, why don't we plan for 6:15?
Okay.
The latest, 6:15.
The salary issue, we want to be able to give you some harder, faster numbers. So we appreciate that you all provided, as I said, what your proposal is. Our expectation is we can have a fuller discussion about this next time we meet. One of the things I did, well, there are two things I'm going to talk about, and I think there's one that Tim is going to talk about. I think you broke that out, right? In your proposal, the 29.18, the teachers may but need not serve as a building administrator in the absence of the building administrator. We recognize that that is happening in some of the elementary schools. And we appreciate that there's been a volunteering or an agreement to serve. In terms of compensating individuals doing that, what the board is proposing is actually a stipend. And then I also need to give you specifically what we're talking about. The stipend is $1,200 for the school year. Some schools have, and you cannot, because some of these people don't have the appropriate licensure as a school administrator, so you can't call them like administrator designee or whatever. So it would be lead teacher in charge, or teacher, is that a fair way of saying it? Some schools have 2 people who do it. We are suggesting if there are 2 that it's actually split because it can be alternated. I think the coverage of having 2 is because for some people.
I think the term was designated teacher.
Yes, designated teacher in charge, I'm sorry, thank you. So if it happens to be there are 2 people, it would be a split stipend between them, so 600 and 600, because the expectation would be is that no one person would be doing it. For the schools that it impacts, from our perspective, it does not impact the middle school, doesn't impact the high school. It doesn't impact Benel, is that correct? Am I saying this right, Jim? What are the schools that we thought, it was Pownell, Shaftesbury?
Shaftesbury.
And is that it?
Monument.
And Monument. We would be saying for those, because the other schools have a vice principal.
Okay.
And clearly the high school, I can't tell you how many vice principals, deans of students, whatever they have. We've got a couple, right? So we just wanted to put that out there as a counter proposal for you. That's what we would agree to. Then there's the other one.
21.2.
Is 21.2. So here, 21.2 is you're asking for permission for the prepaid and designating which schools. So a couple of items here. One is we are not opposed to the concept of doing some prepay for courses. We had a pretty spirited conversation about impact on, like, it would be more impactful perhaps for younger teachers than it would necessarily for those of you, and I am not trying to insult you, who have your master's degrees already and you're farther along in the salary schedule. There are some concerns that we have about it, about your proposal, and we need to get some information from Renee. One of the concerns, to be very blunt about it, is school finance concern, is that if we're talking about in the fall semester, we may not in fact have tax revenue that has been received. It may be on a tax anticipation note, which is interest, which would be the funds, and so that has an additional cost. We just want to make sure that we have a sense of where that would be. So that was on the fall issue for doing it. We do also have, just so you're aware, there are times when we have people who leave mid-year, and depending on when you leave and your employment status, we may have prepaid your health insurance, and we actually, every year, pretty much have the problem of getting that money back from individuals who leave it at certain times during the school year. And so our concern is sort of not the issue of if the employee doesn't get the passing grade, because we can deal with that. If you're the employee who doesn't get the passing grade and you're still employed by us, we can clearly deal with that. One of the ideas we floated was the idea of a promissory note. I have clients who have teachers do that, as well as an authorization to wage withhold from pay. And that has protections that are built in under the law about percentages that we can take out of people's salaries based on what they would make. We have a concern, however, of what if it's at the spring, so I told you the fall one, what if it's in the spring semester and it's somebody who doesn't return their contract back, right? And so we've now paid out something, so that we may, or somebody leaves mid-year, I guess is actually the better instance. So we are not opposed to it, we just have some questions we want to run through the business office about sort of what her take is of whether or not it would be from a tax anticipation note and things of that nature. So I just wanted to let you all know regarding those two provisions tonight. Tim, are you going to talk about the Appendix C?
Yeah, well, I'll take a look at Appendix C. My only concern there was that we kept those areas equitable for things. I just want to take a look at it before we go. I don't have a problem with it, but I just want to be sure that we get those people in the right category.
And so generally speaking, so we're inclined.
Yeah, we are.
If everybody fits where we
Right.
think that they fit, that we're inclined with that. And that includes and I actually wrote it wrong, it's a CDC Pro Start?
Yes, the Pro Start.
Not Start.
Do I have a list of all those people and their responsibilities?
I don't think you do, but.
Okay, if you could get that to me, then I guess I'll have to ask somebody at the CDC or something as to how many kids they have and all that kind of business.
So that is our update for you all.
Okay. We have a couple for you. The first is that we, in the supplemental board, the first is about the meeting time changing to 6 to 8 p.m. We talked amongst ourselves, there are people who have family obligations. We recognize that it's difficult for you with the ESP negotiations. We were wondering if we could start at 5:30, if we could split the difference.
So I think we're ending those at, Norm, did we set a time?
But
Did we set, I apologize.
3:30.
So 3:30, but it was the expectation 3:30 to 5:30?
I'm not sure we talked about that, but
So do you want,
Could we do that at 5 and then we could start this one at 5:30?
I would think so.
okay, because part of it is obviously for us to be able to get together, because we're sort of.
Yeah.
Yep.
You've got two different boards.
And I actually have different people who are on the support.
Right.
Yep.
So
And
just
we,
modify that, so this would then meet between 5:30 and
7:30.
Does that work better with what you're talking about?
That would work better for us.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's try it.
Because we also have some people who live far away and
Right, no, and in the wintertime, that actually is a pretty.
It's a significant
It's,
concern.
yeah, especially if you're going over Woodford Mountain. I imagine.
Yes.
Oh, that's fun.
So in the supplemental board proposals, we agreed to, throughout the document, modify superintendent to superintendent/CDC director.
Yep.
If you're in agreement with, instead of director, CDC director, we absolutely accept that. And we definitely also accept the references from SWVRTSD to SVRTSD. The other piece, let's see, we agreed to accept 25.1. Although I believe there is a typo. It says designee must be a licensed administrators or supervisors. I think those S's need to be eliminated.
I wouldn't agree with that.
And then 27.7, A, accepting that, and B.
Okay, A and B, both.
Yes.
both.
Yes, okay, so, there were some other comments slash, questions, etc., that we had. So, the first was, we wanted to address the sick leave bank proposal that you suggested in 10.5. We read your proposal on the sick bank, but we feel that the sick bank fulfills an important role for our staff, and eliminating it would not be beneficial for our members. So that's just our comment on 10.5. I'm sorry, there's a piece, okay, I forgot about this. 11.5A3, where it was added, such leave shall be considered as leave under the FMLA, BPFLA provisions of this agreement, Article 1111. We were just wondering if you could give us an explanation or a justification for that. If you don't have it this time, we would accept it next time.
So
But,
off of,
I think it's the third page, so it's 11.5A3.
And how this would differ from what we're already doing.
I'm not sure, Nick, maybe I may have to clarify how you are doing it, but I can tell you what the intent of the provision is. So, FMLA leave in the, requires that the employee has a serious medical condition. Under 3, when you're talking about disability resulting from or contributed to by reason of pregnancy, childbirth, or miscarriage, that would be a serious medical condition. FMLA leave, it's for consistency that FMLA leave, I believe in 11.11, to make sure that we're doing that, is used contemporaneously while you're out on the sick leave. And so it is it's a contemporaneous leave. We have bumped into, not recently, but my recollection is individuals who said, no, I'm gonna take sick leave and then I'm gonna take FMLA leave later. That is under FMLA regulations, not the decision of the employee. It is the decision of the employee who is supposed to designate the leave as FMLA leave. And to establish, and we have done by practice, that it is running concurrently. So that was clarification language for that. It's on 11.53.
Okay.
It was to make sure that, because you're talking, and I have to be honest with you, the language about disability around issues from childbirth is a little antiquated. Norma and I have gotten into this discussion, open to the concept of at some point not having it. I find it a little antiquated, let me just put that out there. But the addition of the language is, as I said, to have it so that it runs parallel to 11 and 11.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I will say this, I think the reason why it's disability is that a disability, although in this case, it would be a temporary impairment at best, but I'm not sure why the language is the way it is.
Okay.
It's been there for 30 years, probably. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry.
No.
Go ahead, yeah.
Okay, so the next piece, we wanted to talk about, oh, actually, before we get to that, sorry. In 29.4, so this is the piece about, so it's 29.4 dovetails with 29.6, so this is the increasing of professional days.
Mhm.
So we're willing to discuss this, but we want to say that we as an organization are already feeling the pressure of increased curriculum expectations due to standards-based grading, the adoption of Common Core a few years ago, and MTSS and other initiatives, that we're wary to give up student days. If we agree to this, we feel there's no need for the district to pull teachers for PD during the school day, since this puts a strain on school resources and interrupts student learning. So one of the things that happens, just as a background, one of the things that happens pretty consistently is entire departments or half of an entire department or entire grade level bands will be pulled from a school at once to do training for a full day. And what that does is it both puts a strain on the sub-pool, which we've talked about being limited, and it ends up putting a strain on the other teachers in the school, because since there's a strain on the sub-pool, then other teachers also end up having to cover those classes. And because of all of that, it interrupts student learning, which I think we can all agree is an issue. So if we agree to the increase of in-service days from 8 to 13, we would have to insist that those pulling of an entire department during a school day can't happen. Because that should be happening during those in-service days.
Can I ask a
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that happening consistently? So when I say consistently, I mean across buildings, elementary?
Yes. Yep.
How frequently is that occurring?
We're not, I don't think we have like hard, fast data, but it, I would say that it happens to a department of some sort, like say math department this month, like whatever. I would say on average at least once a month. That could be wrong. I don't wanna be married to that. But.
So, and when you're going, so it's internal training, I'm trying
Yes.
to, okay.
And people are usually sent over to central office.
Okay.
This is not, this is a different thing from, say, somebody comes in to do a training on restorative practices, or somebody like some outside person comes in to do a special training on something that pulls different people from different areas. We're less concerned about that. We're more concerned about like taking this happens pretty consistently, like taking an entire department or taking half a department or taking all of the third grade teachers in the district or something like that.
Okay, all right. Are there any other questions? That was just for me to come up to speed. Does everybody understand? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and then our final discussion piece. Talking about the elementary language, because you brought it up when we were just meeting.
Yeah.
We recognize that there is a limited subpool, and that is a big concern for not having explicit language. We have a couple things. So we might suggest a survey of current subs to see what the difficulties are. Maybe it's when training happens or is offered. It could be salary, it could be pay, just to sort of get an idea of what why we don't have as many subs. Just a suggestion. But regardless, planning time needs to happen for the job of an educator to happen. And we believe that sick day usage and sick days are happening because teachers are committed to their profession and their students, and it's almost expected that they work beyond the school day. So equitable planning time, both with the middle school and high school that have planning time in minutes in the contract, as well as equitable planning between the different elementary schools, ensures that students receive the best education possible and the education that they deserve. Our students deserve quality education, and without guaranteed planning time, we're selling our students short because teachers are not able to actively reflect on their practice. They're not able to effectively evaluate lesson plans, redesign lesson plans, and we all know that practice of reflection and redesigning of lesson plans, etc., and basing things on where our students are, those are things that are necessary for our practice. And by denying teachers compensated planning time, or guaranteed planning time, denies our students of that quality education.
I did have a follow-up on the supplemental board proposals.
Okay?
Not to be nitpicky, but is there a problem with our proposed Article 29.34, the last one, it's removing Senate?
Which one? Oh,
The last one, the draft.
oh, removing Senate. No, that one's fine.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. It was.
We're just running out of time downstairs.
Yeah.
No, that's perfect.
And the other one that's also fine is the MAUHS and SVRTSD teachers required to attend.
The two open houses. Okay, great. One of the things, and I left it out, and Tim reminded me about that, which is, appreciate your honesty about the position of Arlington and Sandgate coming over and how you all view that. Realistically, they're not merging, they're becoming a district under the SU. So it's not the same thing as that your elementary schools now just all merged into being a union school district and having employees that way. It is not inconceivable, districts have done this in the past, as Norm knows, in that they have separate salary schedules for separate districts. Bare minimum, I think, with Arlington and Sandgate coming over to become a member districts here, there's going to be a lag time, which more than likely won't fit within the term of the contract that we're talking about here. In terms of that, I believe it's 2021 they're right now coming over. So just some of those things, but we do appreciate your forthrightness about, there are differences within there are also differences within the communities. And so that, I think, is something also to be considered as well. I think that was the final note, yes, that that was what I missed. Okay, I apologize, gentlemen, for that. I can't see the clock, I apologize. This was the worst.
It's 7:15.
It's 7:15.
Almost.
So I don't know if you feel we've gone far enough tonight to do this. I think maybe now is a good time to sort of take a break. I think we would like to have some idea about, although we may be able to find out from the central office as well, but sort of some idea about that pulling out part that you talked about and how it's being done. I am making an assumption, which probably is incorrect, that it's probably about personalized learning plans, some curriculum things, and that's what the training is that probably some of it?
Some of it.
Some of it is bullet out so that when Dina comes to do a training on section 504, the special educator, I understand that. But just to get a sense of how frequently that in fact is happening, I think would be helpful.
Do we have a copy of the ground rules ready to be signed?
You know, that's the one thing, Katie, I think I forgot to bring.
Okay.
So-
I just want to remind everybody that we still have next week to provide proposals. We said the next two meetings, this meeting
Yeah.
and then, I'm
Yes.
sorry, not next week, next meeting.
Next meeting, correct, yes. Yeah,
Um,
we did do that. We will deal with the ground rules in the email and the
Okay.
ground rules. I'm sorry, that was me. I apologize for that. Nick clearly makes better drafts than I do, by the way. And that's why we have them here. So we can do that. We're operating under what we agreed to verbally on the ground rules, just so everybody is clear on that. But I think from our perspective, at this point may be a good point for us to stop. As we indicated, there's some information that we need to get so that we can have, I think, a deeper conversation about some of these things.
Will we also have next time ready to sign a tentative agreement on the things that we've agreed to?
You got it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Good.
I'm sorry. Yeah, why don't you do that, and I can actually talk to you after that, but yes.
Okay. Are there any other issues to be brought before this meeting? If not, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'm kidding, go ahead. I was just gonna wish everybody a happy.
Well, I was gonna do that too.
So
Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Happy New Year, happy Merry Christmas, everybody.